Hey everybody, welcome back to Go Read Some Comics with me, Professor Jenna. I'm here today with a tangent that has been brewing in my head all weekend. This was inspired by the latest details around DC Studios' Clayface movie, which is still on the hunt for a director before its late 2026 release date. The Hollywood Reporter confirmed that Clayface will seemingly be about the original Clayface, Basil Karlo, and will be, quote, a Hollywood horror story that follows a B-movie actor who injects himself with a substance to keep himself relevant. This, of course, started plenty of jokes online, including a joke that you might have made in your head as I was reading those words aloud. Oh, they're just remaking The Substance. Never mind the fact that writer Mike Flanagan has had this pitch for Clayface for years, and never mind the fact that the description is literally Clayface's comic-accurate origin story, which DC animated properties have already proved can be adapted very, very well. Some people made The Substance comparisons as a positive, while others doubled down in wondering why this movie needs to exist if it is just ripping off the Oscar darling of the moment. I even saw one TikTok that went way too viral, insisting that this should lead to some sort of plagiarism lawsuit. This all just made me feel slightly crazy, so let's talk about it. In the comics, Basil Karlo started out as a revenge-seeking B-movie actor who gets mad when he finds out that his most iconic movie is being remade without him. He assumes the Phantom of the Opera-esque character of Clayface, a villain that he previously portrayed on screen, and carries out a series of murders. The next two Clayfaces, treasure hunter Matthew Hagen and scientist Preston Payne, each get the power to shapeshift their body and their appearance from their own tragic means. This eventually circled back around to Basil in the post-crisis continuity after he injected himself with the other Clayface's blood and got the powers himself. His most recent origin in the DC Rebirth continuity borrows from his Batman the Animated Series incarnation as he injects himself with the serum in order to repair his face after a car accident. The Substance, meanwhile, stars Demi Moore as Elizabeth Sparkle, a television personality whose insecurities about her age lead her to take the titular substance. This births a younger, theoretically better version of herself, Sue, played by Margaret Qualley, and the two begin to battle over their future. As I've already gone into on this channel, I loved this movie. When I was lucky enough to attend the Critics' Choice Awards earlier this month, I fully gave a standing ovation when director Coralie Vargit and Moore won their respective awards. I hope it at least wins some Oscars, but even if it doesn't, its presence there feels like a major step forward for horror being legitimized on a critical level. I think the movie is gnarly and aesthetically fascinating and has incredible performances, and I love the fact that it uses glossy, hyper-feminine elements as the backdrop for its absolutely disgusting horror story. Just purely on a cultural level, I have loved seeing it shape our collective vocabulary. Taking the substance and respecting the balance are phrases that we can just throw around now. I feel like we haven't seen that in modern horror outside of the works of Jordan Peele and the way that we now say tethered and sunk in place just as vocabulary. Are there similarities between the basic premise of The Substance and the basic premise of Clayface's comic origin? Sure, but it isn't even the only movie that could be brought up in conversation with Clayface so far. DC's Peter Safran told my Phase Hero co-host Brandon Davis that the movie is DC's take on David Cronenberg's The Fly, and honestly, when everything is said and done, I feel like Clayface might end up drawing similarities to another movie this award cycle, A Different Man. But reducing Clayface and The Substance down to celebrity injects themselves with the substance and body horror ensues does both a massive disservice. It might be a clever trick once we get to marketing Clayface for general audiences, but it is a frustrating and surface level way to engage with both movies as pieces of art. Again, it ignores the fact that Clayface's origin predates The Substance by decades. It also disregards the actual creative process and authorial intent that comes with storytelling. For starters, it's safe to assume that Clayface won't have the hyper-feminine and slightly uncanny aesthetic of The Substance, both because of what we've already seen of the DCU's Gotham and its other big cities, and just because it wouldn't suit Basil's story. And on the topic of Basil's story, even if it shares a smidge of Elizabeth Sparkle's quest to fight obsolescence in the entertainment industry, the execution and the specific themes won't have as much of an overlap. I could go on a whole separate tangent about plot versus story, and the fact that people now choose not to actively engage with the subtext or the theme of a specific piece of media, and The Substance feels like a perfect example of that. Vargit and Moore have both been open about how The Substance provided a very personal outlet for their feelings about aging and beauty, and particularly the unrealistic expectations that our culture places on women. Even as the movie has been successful, those themes have definitely gone over some people's heads. Those very specific themes were never going to be the actual story underneath the plot of Clayface because people tell stories in different ways. Even if we were in a hypothetical scenario where the movie had an all-female creative team and only focused on the female Clayface Sandra Blake, the final product might still be wildly different thematically. And it's safe to assume that the Clayface movie we are getting will be personal and thematic in its own way. Again, this is a story that Flanagan has wanted to tell for the better part of a decade at this point, and whether the movie folds in the car accident or the B-movie remake, something that I am personally gunning for because I think it'll be a sort of meta commentary about the industry, it feels like it'll lean more into the tragedy of Basil's transformation and feeling like a monster. Knowing Flanagan's body of work, I'm I'm also hoping for a plotline of grief that hits like a ton of bricks. Even then, the movie is over a year away and hasn't even started filming yet, so it has plenty of space to subvert my own expectations and surprise all of us. It frustrates me so much that so many people seem to not have the capacity for surprise anymore. Asking why a Clayface movie needs to exist is wild, after the same arguments were made about Iron Man and the Guardians of the Galaxy and Peacemaker, all of whom have since become household names far beyond their respective movies or shows. And acting like it is a cardinal sin or grounds for a lawsuit that Clayface might have concurrent similarities to another movie is anti-art in a way. Again, it feels like the worst example of the curtains are blue meme that has gone around since the heyday of Tumblr, and the notion that the audience doesn't need to engage with their art beyond a surface level. It also does a disservice to the entire history of film and the way that genres have been formed within it. Musicals and westerns and screwball comedies were successful because audiences went in with a general idea of what to expect, but could still be surprised by the specifics of the execution or the quirks of a particular director or the chemistry of a particular on-screen pairing. We've even seen this within the genre confines of a modern superhero movie. The ones that have had real staying power and resonance with audiences have their own quirks and authorship behind them, as opposed to just feeling like they were made by some omnipotent committee. That isn't even getting into all of the instances of movies with similar loglines that happen to be released close to each other, some of which have caught on and spawned whole franchises, and some of which have faded into just being movie trivia. Even though we still know so little about Clayface, it already feels like something different. From the expectations of a modern superhero movie, from the subgenre of villain-focused superhero movies, and from the kind of character studies that we see on such a big blockbuster scale. If, in the process, it also helps cement the Substance's brand of body horror as its own mainstream subgenre, then that's more of a testament to the movie's power than anything. Either way, it's clear that Clayface is going to accomplish something that is so different from The Substance and The Fly, and probably even the character's own comic history, and that's a good thing. Are you excited for DC's Clayface movie? What do you think of the comparisons to The Substance? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you haven't already done so. I now have merch. You can click the link in the description if you want to snag some for yourself and help further support this channel. As always, you can find me on social media at Hey It's Jenna Lynn. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, go read some comics.